something happens.
Yep.
And it's not just with that person.
It
it's
happens
with
consistently.
everyone. It's consistent.
It's the same thing with relationships. Like, you know, like someone who's been like one and then the same issue, then another one, same issue. And then so like, it's like, you know, guys or girls are so-and-so.
Yep.
But it's like a pattern. They consistently have that same pattern. So at that point, maybe it's not the other person. Maybe it's you.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode with Driven. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing about finding solutions to your problems. Now, when it comes to that topic, off the top of my head, there's two parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
First is actually identifying the problems, because I know a lot of the times we're very just not self-aware that there actually is a problem, because I know like we're reading a book, like self-awareness and pretty much
self-deception
that sometimes people don't see themselves as the problems, or they don't see that they have a problem. So I at least when it comes to the first part, you know, for me there's two parts to it, which is identifying the problem, and then not just always identifying the problems, but finding solutions to those problems. Because I know we've, you know, with in the warehouse we had, like, I think a while back it used to be a lot bigger than it is right now, because it got a lot better.
A lot bigger?
No, it used to be a lot bigger back in the day, where people always came with problems, found problems, but never found solutions. Now it's gotten a lot better. So what do you think about that? Pretty much, do you agree or disagree that people should find problems, or pretty much should they identify problems?
Well, definitely, because I think that's one of the things that people aren't aware of, is that they, like how we're reading in the book, that, you know, they have a problem, or that there is a problem.
Because real quick, I know, like, sometimes when people have, and you've noticed it, I'm pretty sure you've experienced it when you worked, and in some places, like, there's always like one or two individuals that you know, they get along in the beginning, but always end up fighting with their coworkers, and it's just not. And you know, you know what I'm talking about, where they're cool with, you know, someone in the beginning, but then later on, like, something happens, and it's not just with that person.
It
it's
happens
with everyone. It's consistent.
It's the same thing with relationships. Like, you know, like someone who's been like one and then the same issue, then another one, same issue. And then so like, it's like, you know, guys or girls are so-and-so. But it's like a pattern. They consistently have that same pattern. So at that point, maybe it's not the other person. Maybe it's you. And so I think that's definitely it's seeing that if there is a problem. And then definitely solving it. But I know that's easier said than done. I know some self-awareness isn't like it isn't 100%. So sometimes it has to come from the outside, that, hey, you know, you have a problem. And
sometimes you are aware. It's just you don't want to address the problem. And that goes back to finding the solutions to it.
No, definitely. So that's definitely something that I do agree with. I know there was a lot of more issues, a lot more problems. You know, back then. But then I know one of the things that helped mitigate that was by allowing them to think for themselves. And then also the fact that we built more systems and more processes, more standardized SOP, standardized operating procedures. Granted, we're not there yet. I don't think we're even close to being like good yet. I think we're just there. But I know that's something that has helped. But definitely being aware of if there is a problem. At the same time, also, maybe some things aren't problems per se, because I know a lot of the times people might try to solve something that isn't a problem. And so that's also one of the things that, you know, being aware of that too. Like, well, this isn't actually a problem, so maybe it doesn't make sense to fix.
But I think it's because people have a lot of free time on their hand. That they want to create problems, and that's just going into like generality.
No, but that's true.
But it is true.
Because you know, when your mind is comfortable, when you're comfortable, I think one of the things that I heard is that your mind just tends to create like a problem, because I think that's how human nature is. Figuring out solving problems, you know, like obstacles, you know, overcoming obstacles. I think that's how the human mind. So like, if there's nothing, everything's perfect, then the mind just you know, tends to like create those problems. Hence why like a lot of people that are, you know, good or comfortable in life, where they have no issues or anything like that, they tend to lean a lot towards like being sad, depressed, and all those things. You know, why the like middle class and a little bit higher, there's more sadness and depression, and unfortunately, you know, the unaliving, but in the poor, it's almost non-existent. because people, they don't have time to, like, they're just struggling with their day-to-day, and so they don't have time to think or process, you know, like, sadness. And my opinion, and from our experience. But yeah, as far as that's pretty much it.
Because I saw a video about Andrew Tate. He was saying that he saw a documentary, I think about, I forgot, but it was this woman who survived something tragic. I forgot exactly what, and I don't want to say something that's false, but I forgot exactly what. But when they asked her, you know, how did she get over it? She's like, I just had to go to work. I had to survive. Because like how you mentioned, and I know you also mentioned it too, that I forgot where, but this guy went to Africa or something like that.
So there was this Africa, like they went to this Africa. Oh, I think was it? It wasn't Matt Walsh. It wasn't Matt Walsh. It was someone else that he went to this African tribe. And then you know, they were talking in one night, and then he tried to explain to them the concept of unaliving yourself on purpose. And they couldn't understand, like it didn't register. They couldn't comprehend why someone would unalive themselves. Like, it doesn't make sense, because no, they're worried on their day-to-day, solving problems, you know, getting through the day. You know, like how their tribes, I think from what I remember, is like, you know, they gather food, they hunt, you know, the milk and whatnot. And then at the end of the day, they celebrate a day of life. And then so like, and so imagine, because you're always solving problems, like now, like, you know, because of work and you know, owning the business, you're always solving problems. You're consistently, so like, and this is just me personally, I've never gone through a time of sadness. Like, I haven't even been sad. I've been stressed, I've been frustrated, I've been mad, but I haven't been sad or depressed. And, you know, just because, you know, you're consistently, you know, finding solutions to problems and of that nature. And so like when so they couldn't understand the concept of, you know, unaliving yourself on purpose. Like, why would someone do that? And it doesn't make sense, like in their point of view, because they don't understand it. They don't feel it because of, you know, of their day to day. But I don't know if you were going.
Because I think with that, there's multiple things with identifying the problems. Is like how you mentioned, sometimes we create problems from nothing that don't need to be solved. So, you know, if you have a lot of free time, then, you know, keep yourself busy. You know, get a hobby, get a job, do something, help the community, you know, go to a nonprofit and just help out, give your time. And then also with that, how would you recommend people to even identify problems? Because like, I know how we mentioned it's easier said than done. It's easier said, okay, you need to identify problems to, you know, find the solutions.
Well, I feel like if your life isn't perfect per se, if it isn't running like so smoothly, like where it's perfect always 100% of the time, then I mean, because I know it's hard to identify, say, like, if you don't know there's a problem, then like you don't know, like, how do you identify it? And so I would think, like, at least for me, if life isn't going as you think it should, or you know, isn't going as smoothly, then, you know, there might be obstacles, issues, problems that maybe, like, for example, you're having issues at home. You know, like, you know, that's an example. At work, you know, it's always 100% perfect. You know, usually I would think that the problems tend to lie there. But I know we're reading a book, so like, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, like, and so that's how I would see, like, my life isn't going as smoothly as I would want it to be. So maybe there is a problem, and then identifying where that, you know, those problems or issues arise. That's how I would go about it.
At least for me, my thought process, well, there's two things, because I know one of them, which we're implementing in the warehouse with the productivity sheet. That's one way. I'll get into it, but at least my thought process is, I like to overthink, and not in a way where, like, oh, you know, like, because I know we did an episode of, you know, stop overthinking. So pretty much in a way of scenarios, like, what if I do this one action, or like, pretty much I'm seeing this scenario, like, what happens if I move this around? What happens if, you know, this and that? What if? And then trying to come into a conclusion that, is it even a problem? And if it is, how can I go about solving it in the best solution possible? So that's how I go about identifying problems. The second part I know we're doing, which is the productivity sheet. Pretty much fix what bugs you. That's it. Fix what bugs you. Like, if something bugs you, is it a problem? Probably.
It is.
Like, I know, like, when we have to go back and forth, like, let's say from one area of the warehouse, and then we always have to go back to the other side to get a tool. It's, you know, Does it bug you?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yep.
And I think that's that's the easiest way to see if there actually is a problem, is if it bugs you.
Yeah, no, 100%. So pretty much, yeah. So if it bugs you, and so then so with that, now that you identify the problem, or you know there's a problem, how would you go about finding the solution to it, if at all?
I think if it's within your control, and this is, you know, simplifying it to its most basic or to its more core basic stuff. If you can solve it. If you can't, then don't worry about it. But how I go about finding a solution, like same thing as the way I identify a problem, is I think about it. I create scenarios in my head. What if this happens? What if that happens? And seeing the best outcome possible.
And then with that, when you think about like overthink, you could say, like that's the wording you use, like overthink, or when you tend to like try to see like what could happen if you do this.
Yeah.
How often has that been accurate? Because I'll tell you from my experience, like, well, from others, well, no, it's not even my experience, because I guess I don't, well, yeah. But also, so how has that been for you? Like when you think about it and, you know, these could happen if I do this.
Yeah.
How like accurate or how helpful has that been for you?
Well, to me, because when I create different scenarios in my head, I have to do it. Because, yeah, that's one thing. Like, if you overthink that, that's probably not the best, because you're not going to do anything. Right. But I try to find the simplest solution to it. And if I can't, then I move on to the next thing I was thinking about. So it's just thinking of different scenarios of how I could solve it. Like, let's just say, like, I'll give you a scenario that I'm doing right now, because I know when it comes to charging the batteries for the cameras, it's a hassle, because I had to put it in my desk. I have to go back, you know, to the podcast room, and then I have to go back to the other side of the warehouse where the cabinet is for when we record the cars. So that's a problem. Yeah. Now, there's different ways I could go about it. I could, you know, buy a shelving next to me, but that's going to cost money. Yeah. I could move that cabinet closer to me, which is what I did. So that's another option. Or I could just leave everything in the podcast room and walk back and forth. So those are different options. I think the easiest to me was bringing the cabinet closer, which I did.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like it's just a better solution to the problem that existed.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much what I mean about like the different things I could do. Is I could either buy something and put it next to me to free up my desk. I could move the cabinet closer, which I think that's the best option. Or I could just leave everything in the podcast room, which I'm still going to have to walk. And so that's how I go about it. Like, okay, what could I do? Like, immediately, what could I do? And that's how I go about solving the problem.
And so when it comes to people, though, like, do you think you could apply to people also?
I think you can. More than anything, thinking about like different scenarios is just trying to find the simplest solution. So like if something bugs you, just, okay, how can, like with the resources I have right now, how can I solve it? I don't know, what's another problem you had?
When it comes to like...
just in general, like recently.
And recently...
or maybe like the blade. You know, when we get packages, like you had to find the blade. And it's just like...
pretty much having to go back and forth trying to flip for a blade.
Just leave a...
Just having assigned a blade opener or package opener.
It's that simple. Yep. Because you could have gone different ways of solving it. You could have maybe put the packages and then you... I don't know. You could have done a lot of stuff.
No, 100%. 100%.
But that's getting very into specifics. But I know with that, on your end, how would you go about solving
a problem? And like how you mentioned, well first, before like, well, I was gonna say the simplest way is usually the best way. But one of the things that I did want to add before that is that a problem even worth fixing per se? Because like how I mentioned, like, for example, if there's friendships, if there's relationships, if there's, you know, along those, you know, something along those lines, like, you know, there's always this, you know, like crappy road that you had to drive by, you know, you know, maybe it's just worth it. Is it even worth solving it? And so sometimes like friendships, like, is it worth like, and it might sound mean and it might sound like messed up, but is that friendship even worth, if there's an issue or problem, is it even worth solving? Or does it just make sense to kind of eliminate then?
Yep. Yeah.
Relationships.
Yep.
Maybe like your guys are toxic to each other. Yeah. Is it worth solving? Well, and so maybe that's a problem that you have. Maybe it's not worth solving it because it doesn't, like, by solving it doesn't really add to your, you know, what you really want in life and what your values are. So maybe just, because at least for me personally, like really my whole life is just family and work. That's pretty much it. Like I don't hang out with friends, and I mean I like to think I do have friends. I just, you know, when there's time, when time allows, but usually it's just those two things that, you know, really are of my core values. Friendships too, like, you know, we have some solid friends that you know, we would do a lot for because they've done for us so much, you know, when we were, you know, up and coming per se. But you know, like any other problems, like you know, hence why like we could get cheaper cars or like older cars, but the fact that we would have to change the oil, like, you know, the radiator gives out, you know, all these things, like, is it worth it? Or would we want to, like, or we would just eliminate that and, for example, get like newer year cars? Because I think for us, our time is more valuable than having to, you know, save money and solve these little things. 100%. And so is it even worth fixing? Is that problem even worth fixing? Or is it even worth having? I don't think that problem is worth having. Like, I think you would agree, like let's say you save money, but now you have these little issues.
Well, yeah, because you exchange one thing for the other. Like, either you save time or you're going to save money.
Yeah, and so, like, the problem is probably a higher payment. Yeah. But I would rather have that problem than, you know, this problem. So, like, is that problem even worth having? Okay, so then just to recap, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. So, the way you go about solving a problem is first identifying, is it even worth fixing it? If it's not, then problem solved. Exactly. Problem solved. You just remove yourself from that. You just eliminate that problem. You just disassociate yourself, whatever that may be.
Yeah. And then the second part to that is, if you do find that you need to solve that problem, finding the simplest solution to it.
The simplest solution. I don't want, exactly. I don't want to have, you know, like issues with my car because it's older and now you wanted to save a little bit of money. Yes, you'll be stuck with a higher payment, but then at least that, you know, that problem is like, that's the simplest solution. Yeah. But because I know a lot of the times we tend to overcomplicate ourselves. We tend to overcomplicate. We tend to overthink and overcomplicate ourselves. And sometimes the simplest, you know, solution is at least in my opinion, the best way. Especially also like in work, if you've seen, like when we tend to overcomplicate systems and when we tend to you do it like you know, crazy stuff, like you know, you have to remember all these things and all these things. Usually that tends to create more problems, more issues, more of the wrong items sent, more returns, more refunds, more questions from customers when the listings aren't easy and simple and there's so many things they need to do in order to buy a product. You know, like people just, you know, per se.
Yeah, because I know people tend to add on instead of subtract, because we read that. So people tend to, you know, maybe unwillingly or unknowingly, but make things complicated. Yeah. So how do you go about finding the simplest solution? I mean, if there is even a way, because I know like through time, it comes with practice. It comes, you know, from repetitions. Like you just automatically, you're able to figure things out.
Yeah. So how to find the simplest solution? Yeah. That's a kind of a hard one. What's the simplest? I think one solution that everyone can understand and that it's easy to comprehend. I mean, that's just on the superficial level, like, because like at work. Oh, you want to say something?
No, I was going to say maybe just try to solve it how a kid would solve it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, for example, we tell one of our design people or one of like, or when we're having a meeting, like talk to everyone as if they were a 10-year-old or a 5th grader. Yep. Like in the term, in the verbiage, and then verbiage is probably not something, but in words that they would understand, and also in a flow or in I don't know how to say consistency, where like, you know, you're not doing all these crazy like maneuvers and tactics, you know, talking, you know, which talking may seem like
especially good when fancy words are used, like when it's not necessary.
And so for example, just, you know, saying like, if you go ahead and do this, then you go do this, and then do this, and then do this, and like just straight. Yep. But I know some people, like, they like going like around. They were like, you know, taking the harder route per se. Not saying that is a bad route. Maybe with that, by doing that, it's for the people and for the person that understands it, it's more clear. Yeah. But it's harder to comprehend. Sometimes it's just like the easiest, like the easiest flow. Like for example, just the easiest. It's hard to explain, but just try to solve it like if you were and try to explain things as if you were going to talk to a 5th grader, a 10-year-old. Because that, you know, that's usually, you know, and we've heard it from also business people. Yeah. Like the really successful business people, like talk to people like if they were, and well, not those exact words, but the sentiment was the same, that just the simplest is always the best solution.
I agree.
Yeah, instead of adding, subtract. Subtract it. And that's one of the things, because at least for business, like, well, I mean, I guess that's just getting beyond the point, but you know how like there's only certain things that the customer values.
100%.
Like the for example, in our particular business, the good material, the cutting of the material, the tools, the packaging, and the shipping. That's pretty much what they value. They don't care anything about what goes on in the warehouse. They don't care about people problems. They don't care about like having to pay electricity, all these other things. So with all that, just that's the core, and then just trying to stay as close to the core as possible. Our activities and that's pretty much it. But I mean, that's beyond the point. So simple. But I know we like to add.
So try to solve it. I guess just to make it simpler, and correct me if I'm wrong, but try to solve it as if a 5th grader would try to solve it.
Because a lot of the time, like I feel like sometimes, like if they were to solve it, they would solve it simpler and better. Like they would come to a better, like the 10th grader, because they don't have like all the life experience, all this like like things. They just say like, oh well, if there's a problem, you just do this. And it's like duh. But we try to like do all these things because of our life experience. More things like it's just we like to do all these add-ons and whatnot. But the simplest solution is just
sometimes better. Most of the time it's better.
I haven't seen a solution that is better because it's more complicated. For example, which I think is still a good tool to use, like the Rolls roller. Because I know the transfer tape was like, that one gets the transfer tape and it gets it good. And so I know like there's one person that consistently uses the Rolls roller is like a big machine that we have that helps with the transfer tape. Squeegeeing. And so like, big expensive table, right? Which, people do use, well, one person particularly does use, and it's really good. But then like, because we had issues with, squeegeeing, the crazy solution? How, because they were squeegeeing with the felt? Flip it around and use the hard edge. And it just does a good ass job. That's it. That was the simplest solution to the squeegeeing. And so it's crazy like how like all this complicated thing, and the solution was just flip the squeegee around to use the hard edge, and
it's good.
It does as good a job as the Rolls roller. And so like an example like that. Sometimes it is the simplest one.
100%.
But do you have anything else to add? I mean, I know that kind of to like to recap, what would you say in the topic of the conversation, like finding solutions to problems?
So just to recap, to recap what we talked about. Number 1, learning how to identify problems, because sometimes we're not aware. One of the ways to do that is to fix what bugs you. And if you see patterns, then probably it's a problem. Like if for whatever reason you don't get along with your coworkers, and then you go on to another job, you still don't get along with them, you go to the next job, same thing happens, probably you're the problem. So that's number 1. Number 2, finding the solution is if it doesn't make sense fixing it, then don't fix it at all. And you fixed it.
That's pretty much it.
And the second part to that is make it as simple as possible, like a 5th grader would solve it. And I mean, that's pretty much it. And so like how you said, simple is the way to go. It may not be fancy, it may not be like look cool, but it's usually the best way to go about it. You think that's why people tend to overcomplicate it, is because they want to I guess I'm getting into it, but maybe that's for another topic.
Maybe because how like you may appear smarter, all these other things, like or because it's so complicated, you think that it's good, because rocket ships, they're complicated, they do crazy stuff, but usually it's just like just easy. So simple. And then also like, is that even a problem worth solving, or does it just make sense to completely just remove the problem, to not have it at all? And so I mean, that's the easiest way. Granted, it has to, so many barriers, but Yeah, so like you said, that's pretty much it. But yeah, with that being said, let us know how you find solutions to problems in the comments down below. And if you have nothing else to say, I have nothing else to say. This has been another episode of Driven. My name is Juan.
My name is Alexis.
And we'll see you on the next one.